Hey, my name is Kimberly Johnson, and I am so grateful that you're taking a few minutes to watch this presentation by Dr. Sean Dugan. Dr. Dugan is a passionate pediatrician based out of Northern California. He's based right here in Redding, and he specializes in child abuse. He moved to Redding 5 years ago with no plans on working in child abuse and saw how desperate the need is here and decided to go for that. So I'm grateful for you taking about 15 minutes of your time and watching this presentation by Dr. Dugan at Redding City Council. Thanks so much.
The first one's going to be by Sean Dugan, MD, regarding the Children's Legacy Center. And Sean, you can come to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, council members, and thank you for the invite to speak about this very important issue for the children of our community. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Dr. Sean Dugan. I'm a child abuse pediatrician here in the North State. I'm also a certified sexual assault forensic examiner for pediatric patients. I've lived in Redding and worked here for over the last 5 years. I primarily work out of Shasta Community Health Center, Mercy Medical Center, and I've recently gained privileges at SRMC. I conduct forensic examinations for all types of child abuse, mostly physical and sexual abuse. I've also recently had the honor of joining CAPC, the Child Abuse Prevention Coordinating Council, as a board member. There's not enough time tonight to talk about the achievements and impact they have had on reducing child abuse in our community. So tonight I will focus on the opposite end of the spectrum, the prosecution and the protection and provisions, medical, mental health, and many other services that we're proposing to provide at the Children's Legacy Center. In order for you to understand why we need the Children's Advocacy Center, you're going to need to understand the current state of child abuse here in the North State. This is a graph from 2014, and it shows all the counties in the North State of California. As you look at the graph, you'll notice that the counties in the north tend to have a darker color. The darker the color, the higher the rate of child abuse. This graph covers not only reported child abuse, but substantiated rates, which means child abuse is found, and also foster care entry. And if you look, there's a pretty clear and obvious demarcation for the upper northern, more rural counties. I'm asked this question a lot. Doc, why is the child abuse so much higher up here? Why is it so much worse in the North State? What I tell people is that is a complex answer. It is multifactorial. It has to do with our demographics, our socioeconomic status, our overwhelming drug problem, but it also has to do with the fact that we do not have in this county or any of the neighboring counties a multidisciplinary interview team. This is a team of people from different agencies working together for one cause, to obtain forensic evidence and to provide healing services for victims of child abuse and their family. On this next slide, I'd like to show the rates of substantiated child abuse for the different counties. If you'll look, Shasta County has a rate of 12.8 children per 1,000 in 2016 that have substantiated child abuse. You'll notice the county southwest team has a slightly higher rate as well too. But most of the other counties of similar population in more urban areas tend to have lower rates of child abuse. Actually, over the past few years, the amount of substantiated child abuse has actually been decreasing in Shasta County. This past year, 2016, there were 468 cases. Yes, that's 468 substantiated cases of child abuse against children in our county. The previous year was just about 500. Unfortunately, this year, we are seeing an increase again and tending towards the higher numbers we had back in 2012. To date, as of today, there are Children's Services has petitioned the court 109 different times to place children in foster care. Each petition represents a family. It could be one child, it could be 4 or 5. So these don't actually reflect the number of children placed in foster care this year. If you look back to 2016, there was 110 total for the entire year. It's October 17th. We still have 2.5 months left. I can guarantee we're going to be more than 109 and more than last year. So we are seeing an increase this year. Another factor for our children is that they experience more adverse childhood experiences than most other counties in California. The adverse childhood experiences or events is a well-published, studied guide that talks about different experiences that children go through in their childhood that contribute to mental and other health problems later on in life. And if you look at the graph, we are well above the California state average for all forms of abuse, interpartner violence. Drug use is 57.7%. So that means that 57% of homes surveyed in 2012 had at least one family member with a substance abuse problem, markedly higher than the rest of the state. In order to understand more about how we investigate child abuse, you have to know the process. This is literally how it happens today. If somebody in the audience reports child abuse while I'm speaking, this is how this process occurs today. And this is a process that in other counties hasn't occurred in over 30 years. But we still do it this way in Shasta County because we don't have a Children's Advocacy Center. When child abuse is reported, often a law enforcement patrol officer does a field interview. That's the first interview the child receives and their family about the child abuse. That is forwarded to a police investigator. It's cross-reported to CPS. Now keep in mind, if this is on a weekend, sometimes there's a different weekend crew from the weekday crew. So now a new investigator from Children's Services and a new investigator from law enforcement sometimes has to interview the child. Up to 5 interviews right there. Then I come along if there's sexual abuse. So by the time they see me and I'm performing a sexual assault exam or a physical child abuse exam, I might be the 4th, 5th, or 6th person that has to interview them. I've literally had parents come to me and have to tell me about how their 4 or 5-year-old was repeatedly sodomized by somebody they knew, they loved, and brought into their home. How do you think that is for them? Put yourself in their shoes. If you're a parent, can you imagine having to tell that horrible story over and over and over again? I've had parents literally have a mental breakdown in my office. I feel bad, but I need that information. I can't do my exam properly. I can't find evidence of child abuse. I don't know what I'm looking for. And so it has to happen. And the horrible part is, I know I'm not the last one. They go on to get interviewed by other people. The crime victim advocate, the mental health worker, their own primary care physician, sometimes county council has to interview them, and finally, the deputy district attorney. And I tell you, my colleague, Sarah Murphy, who's here tonight, she has told us countless times about by the time she sees this family, she could be up to the 11th person that's interviewing this child. They don't want to talk about it anymore. The family doesn't want to talk about it anymore. She has to spend weeks just getting rapport with the child in order to get them to tell their story. And then we have to have them go to court sometimes. And sometimes they have to testify, stand up here just like me, staring at the perpetrator in the audience and tell that horrible story again. We cannot do this to our families, guys. We cannot do this to our children. This is completely unacceptable. And there has been a better method out there for 30 years now in the United States and across the world. And it is time we start doing that method here. This is that method, the Children's Legacy Center. This is a multidisciplinary approach. All the people I've mentioned that have to interview this child will literally work out of this building. We will all be housed in the same office. The children and their families will be brought there for one interview, while the rest of us watch this interview. And the child will receive immediate mental health services that day. They won't have to come back. They won't have to make an appointment at Shasta Community Health Center to get their START exam. They won't have to go to SRMC necessarily in the middle of the night. We can do it there, right there at our center. The core group, the Children's Legacy Center is going to be at the core of the 3 major arms for child abuse in our county here. The most important of that is the MDT, the multidisciplinary team. And this is that team of individuals I just mentioned. The deputy DA, the police, one from each department, myself or another medical representative, mental health, our private nonprofit Extreme Love, the crime victim advocate. We will all work out of this office together. It also encompasses SAFE, which stands for Sexual Assault Forensic Examiner. That's what I'm certified as, and there's other certified providers in town too. We will perform sexual assault exams if needed on the victims that day, not making them go home, not making them wait for it. We'll do it that day, get it over with for them, collect the evidence we need along with the interview. The last part is SCAN, which stands for Suspected Child Abuse and Neglect. I authored and submitted, and it was approved, the SCAN policy at Mercy Medical Center, where I take consult for children who suffer from injuries. And there I determine whether the injuries were inflicted or accidental. The core team that is going to process that case is the same MDT, so they will also be managing those cases as well. This is all coming from the Children's Legacy Center. This is how the new process will go once we get this building up with enough community support. If child abuse is suspected and reported, it will be referred to us if it's applicable. The child will be brought to the Children's Advocacy Center, or Children's Legacy Center, where the child will receive the forensic interview, medical examination, and sexual assault forensic examination if needed. Child will receive immediate mental health services, medical services, and the family will be given those services the rest of the time that they need them. We will be there for them whenever they need us. The building we are looking at is located less than a mile from all of our facilities except for Anderson. Naturally, it's because it's in Reading, it's a little bit further. This building site is on a 1 acre lot, and it has a 4,000 square foot building. I never expected to find a building that would actually match almost exactly what we needed to start with. I really didn't think we were going to be able to work with such a nice building. It has all the rooms necessary to conduct the interviews, medical examinations, and to do therapy and have office space for our workers. There is also enough room on the property to build an emergency assessment center. This emergency assessment center will provide all the services I mentioned to children entering foster care. And we will be able to provide emergency housing, temporary, as it gives time to children's services to find the right foster home for them. This will make our Children's Advocacy Center or Children's Legacy Center unique when compared to other centers. This is the building here, and you'll notice there's 2 interview rooms on the left with 2 viewing rooms. There's a medical exam room in the front, and there's several offices available. We will only need to make a few minor changes to the building in the first phase of development. That includes soundproofing the interview and the viewing rooms, the medical examination room, and making a few other additions such as cameras, microphones, and making some small changes to the family room while they wait there. The second phase will be adding that house I mentioned, the Emergency Assessment Center. That's where the children will receive comprehensive medical, dental, mental health services while awaiting placement in a proper foster home. In the third phase, we'll actually expand the original building to 7,000 square feet and remodel it for future long-term use. I get asked a lot, how can I help, Doc? And public support, public awareness, spreading the word, but also donations. We need donations so we can get this process started. There's going to be a lot of money that goes into this project, but we need a starting amount so we can get the ball rolling, get our feet under us. I'd like to also share a personal story of one of my early experiences in my career. The very first sexual assault exam I ever performed was on a 6-year-old girl. I had pretty much one of the only people she knew at this point in her life because she had transitioned to multiple foster homes. So I'm one of the few people that knew her from before and after placement. She had been sexually assaulted, and we were ordered to do a sexual forensic exam by Children's Services. After performing the exam, I looked her straight in the eye, like I do for every child, and I told her, everything is normal. Everything about you is normal. Your private area is normal. There is no damage. There's nothing wrong with you. She looks relieved. She gets off the table. She walks up and she hugs me the way one of my own children hug me. If you're a parent or a grandparent, you know what I mean. One of those deep hugs. I tell you, you have to have thick skin to be in this business or you will not last long. But that cut right through to my heart. I have trouble just talking about it. I choke up every time I think about it. What that did, that poured fire on the gasoline inside of me. That just struck a match with my passion, galvanized my resolve, and brought me here to where I am here today. And it told me that everything we're doing is helping. 75% of the work I do is to heal these children, to restore them, to give them back a piece of their original self that somebody took away from them. And I tell everybody, as God is my witness, as long as there's blood flowing through these veins and breath in my lungs, I will not stop fighting for this until we have a Children's Legacy Center here in Reading, until we stop putting these families through 6 to 10 different interviews, all for the same common purpose or goal. There's no reason to do this. It's been done in other counties for over 30 years. It is time we bring this center to Reading. Thank you very much for your time.